Well, hello, my dear listeners. I hope you're having a fantastic Valentine's Day. I know I just uploaded a video yesterday, and I'm going to upload another one tomorrow because it's Saturday. But I wanted to show how much I love each and every single one of you by giving you an extra video this week. Not just a normal extra video, but a fantastic story straight from the Library of Shadows. The Library of Shadows is a fiction subreddit that is dedicated to, how should I put this, horror stories. And the authors that write their stories in the Library of Shadows are all freaking amazing. This author here, for instance, is freaking amazing. The name of this story is Forget Me Not, and the author is OleBeanSprout. That's O-L-E, Bean Sprout. I'll put their username in the overlay as always. I wanted to do this story for Valentine's Day, and I'm super happy that they were willing to let me narrate it. So I hope each and every single one of you guys can appreciate this. That said, again, one more time, this is Forget Me Not by OleBeanSprout from the Library of Shadows. Enjoy. The bell above the door tinkled cheerily as it swung open. The sound, a stark contrast to the heavy rain pelting the windows outside. The elderly woman behind the counter looked up from her book as a young man entered the pawn shop. "Can I help you?" she asked, shifting her reading glasses up onto her forehead and placing her book neatly on the counter. She watched him closely as the young man shook the rain from his boots by the door. He gazed around the dingy shop, taking in the shelves of antiques, all but hidden behind dusty worn furniture and stacks of musty books. Holding a cardboard box under one arm, he used the other to push the hood of his jacket from his head as he approached the counter. He was perhaps in his 20s, a mere boy in the elderly woman's eyes. His appearance was non-threatening, average by all accounts, save for one rather distinct feature. Her gaze traveled to his face, and she found herself studying it longer than she had intended. His left eye was blind, clouded and murky, the surrounding skin marked with scars. The old woman felt a small spark of curiosity ignite somewhere in the back of her mind. The visitor placed the box on the counter, sliding the lid off and tilting the open parcel toward the woman for her to look inside. "Do you have any use for these?" he asked. She pried her gaze from his face and leaned in over the box, flipping her glasses back down over her eyes to examine the contents. The spark of curiosity grew into a flame, warming her interests. She looked up at the young man. As the owner of a small shop, she knew better than to ask questions as to how the items sold to her were acquired by their former owners. "I'm sure they would sell," she said bluntly. "How much would you like for them?" "Nothing. You can have them. They're all yours." He placed the lid back on the box and slid it over the counter toward her. "Are you sure you wouldn't rather sell them, dear?" She eyed him with an intensity that made him fidget. The young man shook his head. "They bring up bad memories. I just want them out of my apartment." If he looked closely in that moment, he might have noticed an odd change come over the woman as he spoke. A quick flash of her eyes, the slightest of smiles, a hint of glee. She composed herself so quickly that he might have wondered if he had even seen it, or if his mind was simply playing tricks on him. She fixed him with a strange look. "Sell it to me." "You're not listening to me," he said. "I told you, you can have it." The woman shook her head. "Not the box." She stretched a frail hand toward his face, but hesitated when he quickly drew back. "The memory. Sell it to me." "I don't know what you're talking about." He eyed her warily, a look of immense discomfort on his face. "Look, if you don't want it, I can just donate it to a thrift store," he said, reaching for the box. The old woman's hand snapped out, her fingers grazing his arm before he could pull back. There was a sharp flash of light. A small spark of pain like an electric shock darted up his arm. And in an instant, the world went black. It was early, quiet, chilly. The air heavy with a dense fog that turned the trees of the deserted city park into ghostly figures, looming in the eerie half-light. A sharp, piercing scream sliced through the morning air. Behind it rang another sound. Awful sounds. Unforgettable sounds. Laughter, cold and mirthless. The frenzied snarling of several vicious dogs. The boy could see his sister's face, helpless and horrified as the dogs attacked. He tried to reach her. He fought so hard. The next sound he heard was the wet snap of breaking bones. Blood. So much blood. At last, he broke free of the hands restraining him. Too late. The sight of her mangled body stopped him in his tracks, numbed him, froze him in place. Before him on the blood-stained earth lay his grandmother's silver locket, an heirloom that his sister never took off. It had been ripped from her throat in a frenzy. The boy stared at it in numb disbelief. He forgot to blink, forgot to breathe, forgot to fight back as one of the dogs struck him, knocking him to the earth with claws red from his sister's blood. He barely felt the fangs as they sank into his skull. He gazed in despair at his sister's lifeless body as the world went dark in one eye. And as they pulled the beast off of him, the last sound he heard before he blacked out was the haunting sound of their laughter fading into the fog. The young man gasped as he jerked away from the woman's touch. His head was spinning, the room swaying sickeningly. He placed his palms on the counter to steady himself. "What was that?" he demanded. "What did you do?" "Poor creature," she clucked. "You have suffered much for one so young." She cocked her head to one side and looked him over. "Oh, you're still suffering." The old woman leaned over the counter and fixed him with a gleeful stare. "I can fix that, you know." "What are you talking about?" He realized there were tears streaming down his face and he wiped them away angrily. "How are you going to do that?" "It's simple, dear," she stated matter-of-factly. "You sell me your pain, and I'll take it away." "I don't understand." "You don't have to understand how it works, just know that it does. I can make the pain disappear. All you have to do is say the word." She reached below the counter and placed a wad of cash that had to be at least a few $100s on the countertop, sliding it toward him with her fingertips. She smiled reassuringly. "What have you got to lose?" He eyed the cash nervously. Sure, he could use it, but something felt wrong. "You can't sell a memory. She's crazy," he thought. His gaze drifted to the woman's hand resting on the countertop, and a small chill ran down his spine. She had done something to him, and he didn't understand it. It had felt like he was there, living that horrible moment all over again. It had felt so real. What if she wasn't crazy at all? The events of that day had haunted him for years, weighing him down, pulling him under, drowning him. Orphaned at a young age and unwillingly raised by a dismissive aunt, the siblings had often felt that it was the two of them against the world. They didn't have much, but they always had each other. Until that day. It had been random, unprovoked. Some sort of initiation, investigators had guessed, perhaps gang-related, but they didn't really have any answers, and the attackers were never caught. They could be anyone, the young man often told himself. Any passerby on the street could have been involved. The cashier at the grocery store, the homeless man at the corner. It could be someone he saw every day, and he would never know. No matter how much he tried to shake this thought and move on with his life, it dragged behind him everywhere he went, like tattered luggage. He wanted to remember his sister as she was, vibrant, full of life and laughter, but, try as he might, the beauty that was his sister's life had long since been replaced by the horror of the day that she died. He couldn't move on, couldn't forget. He was trapped. He sucked in a shuddering breath, with the distant screams of his sister's death still ringing in his ears. He lifted his gaze. "Will it hurt?" A toothy smile crept across the old woman's face. "Not to worry, my dear." She reached over the counter and stretched her fingers toward his forehead. "You won't remember a thing." As her fingers grazed his face, he was blinded by searing light. He screwed his eyes shut, gasping as a sudden splitting pain ripped through his skull. He could feel the old woman flipping through his memories like folders in a filing cabinet. Worse yet, he could feel her hunger, a horrible gnawing emptiness, a yawning void yearning to be filled with the suffering of others. She needed these memories with a savage desperation. She craved them, survived on them. She pulled the memory of that day from its file and consumed it, violently shredding it from existence. But the ripping, prying sensation did not cease. He still felt her fingers ravaging his mind, searching, felt the memory of his sister's surface. He saw her smiling face. He felt the old woman's hunger as her fingers reached for his sister's face, caressing her cheek. "No. No!" he cried as he pulled away from her touch and opened his eyes. He squinted as daylight flooded his vision. He was greeted by the sounds of the city. Cars honking and revving, the sound of rain on pavement accompanied by muffled thunder. He was alone on a bus. Raindrops splashed against the windows as the vehicle carried him on his way home from... His brow furrowed. He blinked dumbly as he tried to recall. From where? Odd, he thought. He looked down to find a box in his lap. Huh, that's strange. He didn't remember having this box when he left his apartment this morning. At least, he didn't think he did. He lifted the lid and peered inside. He found it to be filled with a collection of items that must have belonged to a young girl at some point. Several old porcelain dolls, an antique music box, some clothing. On top of the pile lay an ornate silver locket, tarnished with age. Beside it, a wad of cash, a few $100 bills bound together with a rubber band. His gaze lingered on the locket, and he felt a curious itch at the back of his mind. A small discomfort, almost akin to sadness. He furrowed his brow, perplexed by this reaction. He felt certain he had never seen these items before, was almost positive of it. He couldn't imagine why or how he had come to possess the box. He tried to piece together the fragments of the day. He supposed he must have picked it up while he was out. That must be it, he thought hazily. He must have stumbled across the box on his outing. He was almost sure of it. I'm lucky I did, he thought. Rent was coming due and money was tight. He could always use cash and items to sell. He lowered the lid, feeling strangely disoriented. As he lifted his gaze, he caught his reflection in the window across from him and was taken aback for a moment at the sight of his clouded eye and the scarring on his face. Had that always been there? How had he gotten it? He pondered to himself. Perhaps he had always had it. Yes, that was it. He'd had it for as long as he could remember. For all he knew, he'd been born with it. He smiled to himself and leaned back in his seat, satisfied with his recollection of events. He gazed out of the window at the rain-soaked city and took in a deep breath, sighing softly as he tried to quell this strange new emptiness that he felt inside. Oh, where am I? Why am I in a closet with a microphone? What the hell's going on here? Why do I have a sudden urge to say I hope that you enjoyed that story? Huh. Oh well, I'll just say whatever comes to my mind. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. I know that I did. That old lady clearly had something off about her, but I can't seem to recall what it was. I hope that this story satisfied for whatever special holiday was going on today. Something about hearts or something. I don't know. Anyway, if you did enjoy the story, I hope that you click the button that tells me you liked it. I don't remember what it looks like. And also you could click on that red button with the one word to make sure that you know what I'm posting whenever I post it. Why am I not able to remember anything? Huh. Maybe you can leave a comment and tell me what it is I'm forgetting. But until next time, yeah, I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you come back, and I hope that you, do the thing. I don't remember what it was. Hey there, friends. Just wanted to remind you that starting next week, the schedule of my videos will be changing to Wednesday and Friday instead of Thursday and Saturday for the collection videos, and Monday will no longer be a set date for the horror stories. However, the horror stories will be at least once a week. I don't think they're always going to be on Mondays, but I do think that there will be at least one every week, possibly 2, maybe 3. This will make more sense as it happens, but just know that my Thursday-Saturday videos are now going to be Wednesday and Friday. I may post about this on my subreddit. If I do, I'll link it down at the bottom, and you guys can go check out what I have to say. Alright, thanks guys, bye.